Hello, sweet souls. It's DTO in the flow, wanting you to know that I'm grateful today to have an extraordinary comic, and his name is Josh Lanzet, and he is an LA-based comedic writer and performer whose credits include multiple sold-out runs of his original two-person play called Dating: Adults Embracing Failure, and a one-man show, Do You Want a Sandwich? The romantic missteps of Josh Lanzet. A charming ball of energy, wearing his heart on his sleeve, Josh is a witty and relatable open book that you can't help but want to bring home to meet your family. All right, without further ado, let's bring on Josh. Nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you.
Thanks for being on the podcast. You're my
Thank
first
you.
comedian that I've had, which is awesome.
Okay, that's what
It's an
I'm
art.
glad to be kicking it off.
Yeah, for me as a musician, it's like an artistic form of taking all the words from Webster's dictionary, crafting them, delivering them. And it's kind of the same thing. Like of the 88 keys on a piano, I take particular
Yeah.
notes and I place them. And the silence between the notes is what we call music. And so awesome. Well, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to let everyone know that we're live streaming. So at any time, if anyone would like to comment, ask any questions, you can see all of that is available for you. And I am in Costa Rica, at Embody, Costa Rica. So if anyone feels like coming to paradise, especially those people that are in the freezing cold weather right now, I always like to invite people that there is a solution, which is our beautiful space where it's a wellness retreat center, gorgeous. And my beloved Himalaya and I have yoga, meditation, retreats. And I think everyone out there deserves a vacation, right? Especially whatever they went through in 2023.
I was going to say, I could use one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, come on down. The water's warm. And you can drink the water in Costa Rica. You can't drink it in Mexico.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. All right. I want to kick it off here with question number 1.
Sure.
And I want to make sure everyone knows who you are. Check out your website.
Yeah, please.
All right. As we said in the green room, every superhero has an origin story. So my first question to you is, what is your origin story with comedy?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. My mother loves to tell this story, which is when I was younger and my mother asked me what I wanted to do when I grow up. I said I wanted to be a sit-down comedian, which was like a stand-up comedian, but I wouldn't, I preferred to sit. And it's silly, but I was saying that at a very young age. But it's interesting you were talking about music. I started out in music. I started out as a musician. I'm a classically trained guitarist and vocalist. Also played the piano and played saxophone. So kind of very, very musical. And I used to play with my band from 16 to 22. It was a blast. But the more shows we did, the more I realized that I liked the space between the songs where I joked around with the audience more than I like playing the music, which is crazy because I love music. But yeah, that's kind of where I was, where I got to that place where I was like, this is a lot of fun for me. And I think that process kind of had me diving in much more headfirst into comedy.
Well, I love that your family got to be early supporters.
I don't know about that. I didn't say they were supporting. No, I'm kidding. No, they were great. They were great. But my mother tells that story all the time. She's like, he knew. And I'm like, well, I mean, I was like 5, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, supporting as we define family supporting, which I'm sure it's like a little critical. You're actually going to make some money from this thing.
Yes.
You went from music to comedy. Is there a career? Come on,
I mean, listen, we definitely weren't in a place where my parents were like, "Hey, don't go to college." Like, I don't think we got to that. But no, they definitely were supportive.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're sitting down now, so
it feels good.
Dreams come true.
Dreams do come true.
Awesome. Love that. And I love that you're also a musician. That's great. All right. So question number 2 then is, why was it important for you to do stand-up? As you know, there's all different forms of comedy out there. You can become a writer. So what is it about you actually being live with the audience? Like, I think you just hinted to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I started with other forms. I mean, when I was doing music and things like that, and talking between the songs, that was kind of my own form of like dipping my toes in that process. As soon as I went to college, and shortly thereafter, I was doing improv and sketch comedy. I went out to Chicago and was performing very regularly at all the theaters out there, Second City, Improv Olympic, the Annoyance, all those other kinds of places. Um, I started with storytelling as my kind of independent experience. I think that I love being in groups. I think that you can derive a lot of happiness from a lot of those things. So I'm not one of those stand-ups who kind of like turns my nose up at other art forms. Um, but I think that there is a freedom to doing stand up, which is you can say what you want, when you want, and you are the person who accepts whatever the response is. I think a lot of comics these days are always saying like, these famous comics like, I've been canceled. I'm like, no, you can say anything you want. You just have to accept the consequences of what you say.
Yeah.
And I think that when you are doing stand-up comedy and you're the only one up there, you live and die by that response. I mean, that is, it's just on you, and you don't have to worry about, looking around on stage to be saved, or looking around to see if you said something dumb, kind of, oh man, like, did I ruin the show for someone else on stage with me? There's a power to that. And I think that the way that I choose to do it, I can kind of be as vulnerable as I would like to be, and push my own boundaries in that regard. And I think that stand up allows me to do that, in a way that is challenging and satisfying for me, but is also in a way that kind of opens up a new experience for audiences.
I love that because there is this intimacy that you create when you're on a stage, whether you're performing music, um, doing live paintings,
Yeah.
whether you're
Oh.
hosting an event show. I go to festivals. There's people doing everything on stages these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You be juggling, and it's amazing when there's that interaction with the audience. And so I'd love to play a clip of
Please.
your genius. And I was going through
I don't
YouTube
know
and
about that.
I just love the experience of yeah, just being able to be with people. And I after this we'll talk about your experience touring. So here we go. Here's a clip. Um, Lights, camera, action.
Oh, I can't hear it.
Here we go. How about now?
No, I still can't hear it. Maybe they can.
Let's hear. You might have to do it live.
Oh gosh, I don't know about that.
I remember that movie. Oh my gosh. Oh, jeez. Oh, wow. That's amazing. All right. Question 3. When
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
begin touring?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, it was decently early on. I think that when you're in a major city, right? So like I was in Chicago, I'm now in Los Angeles. When you're in a major city, I think that it's hard to get stage time, especially in LA. I mean, you're competing with you step up on a stage and somebody can go two doors down and and see John Mulaney, so I think
Yeah.
there's a challenge there. So very, very early on, I would just reach out to people in other cities and kind of try and figure out like, you know, are there spots I can do? And from there, I really started hitting the road a lot more aggressively. I mean, over the past probably year, was hitting every major city I could, from San Diego and the Bay to New York, Chicago, Miami, performing in Europe, kind of everywhere. Um, and so I think that the other interesting thing about it is that you can get in a bubble. I think if you're doing comedy solely in one place, you start to cater your comedy to that location, and it's just not reality. The world is diverse, and it's kind of important to understand what kind of works. Maybe works in LA, doesn't work in other places. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to do that. But yeah, been touring for quite a while, and I love it. I love being on the road.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, question 4. So, how do people respond to you?
Just laughing the hardest they've ever laughed, and they're like, "This guy is the greatest." No, I'm just kidding.
5-star review.
You know, yeah, all the time. Yeah, I mean, I think that I, hmm, I don't think there's any wrong way to do comedy. The way that I do it personally is I get up on stage and I talk about my life and who I am. And in a very honest fashion. And I think that people appreciate that. I know that when I interact with people, off stage, I really appreciate vulnerability and sincerity, and so I try and bring that to everything I say on stage. So I think that a lot of people that I encounter appreciate that. There is this interesting parasocial relationship that kind of occurs where people think that we're friends. Which listen, I'm friends with all of you. But I do think that happens. But that doesn't necessarily keep me safe from all the trolls of the internet. So I would say in person, people respond to me really well, and I love those kinds of interactions with people to kind of hear about what those jokes meant to them. Yeah, and I think just kind of continuing to keep those pathways open to create experiences and those for all of us.
So, like many people watching right now, I'm sure there are clips that come up into our feed of people heckling comedians.
Sure.
So, from it's almost like comedians get tested, and it's an art form within itself, right? Because you plan your bits, you have your script. Sometimes I'm sure you're
Sure.
free flowing, but the art of improvisation in any creative endeavor, some people feel like their voice, even though you're the guy with the mic, is the one that gets to be heard. So, have you had some competitive audience members that are trying to look at me, steal the show? And do you have any
Sure.
wild stories to share about that one?
Sure. I mean, people are going to do that all the time. And I think that is it's a grab at attention. It's attention grab and I don't listen. I'm not encouraging it. I'm not inviting it, but I also don't fault, if someone's had a lot to drink, I don't fault someone maybe for doing that. If they don't necessarily have the guardrails of other people with them to kind of be like, well, maybe don't do that. No, I mean, definitely
Yeah.
one of the craziest ones. And, this clip is on my website. It was the first clip I had that ever went super viral. I was telling a joke about how I was working at General Mills, and I was my first day. I found out I was put in the multicultural marketing department, and I essentially what was about to get to the idea that, like, look at me, I probably shouldn't be the one who's marketing Cheerios to African Americans and Hispanics. It feels inauthentic. And as I'm getting to that, I barely got the phrase, it would be inauthentic because, and someone yelled out in the audience, "Is it because you're a Jew?" And I was like, okay, so the fact that I am white is no issue for you, but the fact that I'm a Jew is really what's rubbing you wrong. And kind of went on to continue, chatting with this individual about it. And hearing them about maybe a minute later, I was continuing in a different joke, and another person yelled it out, and it turns out those two people were there together. So I ended up kind of dealing with both of them at the same time. And then here's the craziest part. You don't see this in the clip online because the camera was not rolling when this happened. After everything's said and done, these two, there women. These two women came up to me after the show and said, "Just so you know, we're Italian, so I feel like we're the same and we love you." And I was like, "That's a weird way to show you love somebody." But okay, okay.
Mm.
And I think that's in the same way when you look at trolls on the internet, is kind of trying to understand what is motivating what they're doing. And instead of responding from a place of defensiveness, maybe just responding from a place of trying to show them some compassion. I feel the same way about that experience on the stage, which is like you can make all the jokes you want, but off stage, I was just like, these people, when you think they're coming after you, afterward, they're just like, "Oh my God, we're kindreds. We love you." And I was just like, okay, cool. Like, listen, next time, let me tell the jokes. I promise you'll enjoy it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's the interesting part. Like some people think their voice in every situation needs to be heard, right? Sometimes like
Of
take a
course.
few breaths. You're here on a show. Just imagine like during a Cirque du Soleil show, you stand up and be like, "Hey," like
Yeah.
they'd like
Yeah. Yeah.
drag you out. Like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah, put me on the acrobats. Yeah, I think they'd be like, I don't think so."
Yeah. So how do people that have witnessed your comedy, do they start to follow you on socials? Do they then like email you? Do they come to your next shows? Do you have some fans that you see often? Because, for me, it's always like how I measure success or a lot of musicians, like how many streams on Spotify, and then you see the
Oh
streams,
gosh.
you see like the analytics of like which countries people are streaming your music. But I live in Costa Rica right now, and I play it out at festivals sometimes, but like when you're on the road sometimes 6 days a week, that must be like, am I seeing the same people, different people coming up? Do you have friends and family that come out? So what's kind of the dynamic of a show that you really enjoy? Do you enjoy when your friends and family or like old high school buddies show up? Does it make you more nervous, less nervous, or you just kind of be you no matter what?
I mean, I'm always going to be myself. It's definitely weird when you see, when you have friends and family in the audience. I almost prefer not to.
Mhm.
Just because I'm up there to, do my own thing. And when you have actual legitimate relationships with the people in the audience, it kind of changes the energy a little bit. As far as analytics go, I try not to look at them. I used to. I'm a very analytical guy, but I'm kind of like, this is art, and there's only so much analytics that I want to bring into my brain with that.
Mhm.
When people want to follow me, they sign up for my mailing list and follow me on social media, and I'll always kind of like talk about where I'm going. And I've definitely been to cities where I've had people come up and be like, "Oh my God, I saw you the last 2 times you were here," and this, that, and that
Oh,
that
that's
that
awesome.
happens more and more as kind of the time passes. Um, and I always encourage people. I'm like, "Hey, if I'm going to be in your city and you've seen me before or anything like that, drop me a DM. Be like, hey, really excited to come. Came last time, whatever." And I'll happily come say hello after the show. But yeah, it happens more and more, and I think that to me is much more important. I don't look at how much traffic my website gets at any given moment. I'm far more invested in kind of the relationships I have with those people in those moments.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, as an artist, as a creative soul, it's one of these experiences, I'm sure, where you do it because you're doing it. But at the same time, there are these like affirmations of like praise, or it's like one of those 5 love language words of affirmation, where when someone's like, "Oh my gosh, Josh, you just crushed it. You're awesome. It's
Yeah,
amazing." It
yeah,
does
yeah.
feel good, to get that. And especially returning customers, right? Like business 101. If you get people to return, then you're on the right
Sure.
track.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, and the analytics and the numbers and the algorithms, all of that can get overwhelming, where then it kind of suffocates you to actually be free to just be creative and just wake up and work on your skills. Because sometimes if you're nerding out too much on that, which I'm guilty of this, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've looked at all this, I've read all these websites, figuring out like how to get my music on playlists or this or that, or for you, I'm sure, like how to get booked in certain major
Sure.
places, as you mentioned. But then you get to be you, and you get to just go for it. And um, so how often per day or week are you working on new material, or is it kind of like streams of consciousness? Like a download of an idea comes, or you're in this really wild life situation, and then you create, like you did with what we shared, like you're at the movies with your girlfriend, and then you like put that into you know a share.
Yeah, I mean, I write a lot on stage, so I'll often get up on stage and be talking and kind of see where things go. Weird things happen to me, just like they happen to everybody else. The difference is I kind of am more willing to explore those in front of a huge group of people and figure out if there's stuff that's amusing there or not. Um, but yeah, I would say it's for me a lot more in the moment than it is kind of prepared.
Oh, I love that. It's a lot more improv, free flow. So cool.
Yes.
All right. Number 5. So how can people connect with you? How can they find you?
Of course, I'm at Josh Lanzet on just about every social media platform there is. So please feel free, drop me a message, say hello, anything like that. Preferably, nice messages, but I'll take whatever.
Yes.
But you could follow me there, jump on my website, join the mailing list. I send out notes about where I'm going, what I'm doing. So by all means, please, come on board. And I promise I'm a fun hang. So both digitally and in person.
Amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Well, as everyone can see here, what your website looks like, you can check it out.
Yeah.
There's a variety of opportunities to see when the shows are coming up. You said you got a San Diego show coming up. There's a mailing list people can join. Putting my email in right now.
Oh my
Subscribe
gosh.
to the Vibe. That's what we do. Hey, I've already subscribed.
Hey,
I'm already a fan.
I don't hate
it. Exactly. That's a good thing. It's always funny when like a buddy opens up their phone. I'm like, hey, you follow me on Spotify? They're like, yeah, I love your music. And I was like, wait, bro, give me a follow. Come on. It's like same thing. Give me a subscribe. Like,
yeah, of course.
I would love to close up by you talking about your podcast. So how can people find more information? Is that on your website? Where's that located?
Of course, yeah. So you can follow it. It is called Steep Conversations with Josh Lanzet. The premise is I invite people I admire over for a cup of tea and a chat. So by all means, it's at Steep Conversations on Instagram. It's at Steep Convos in a bunch of other places. So if you just type in Steep Conversations with Josh Lanzet, you'll find it anywhere you get your podcasts, and give it a listen. I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you want to learn a little bit about tea, it's a good listen for that too.
That is great. I love how, you get to be in person with people too. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts like even this one where we're international. I'm in Costa Rica. You're in California. So it's a good thing, right? All right. Well, appreciate you, Josh. Thanks for being on the podcast today. And if anyone wants to check out more of what Josh offers, you can check out Instagram, shoot him a DM. He's open.
Sure.
Say, hey, I saw the DTO podcast. And I appreciate your time today. And
of course,
thanks everyone for watching. All right. Make it a great day.
Take care, everybody.